And so we saw the value in the community. And Aaron was very good at this from the very beginning. He was always like, we're throwing parties, we're throwing release parties, we're doing like signings, we're doing these things. We're getting people in the store so they could meet each other, not so they could hang out with us, so they could meet each other.
Hi, this is Adam. Comic Industry Insiders, our weekly podcast where we talk to the movers and shakers, the people behind the scenes of the comic book industry, and try and learn things for your business or career in comics. I'm doing a quick post-recorded introduction this week because there is a tool, a tip, a trick, all of those things deep inside of this episode with Jason Blanchard. Jason was incredibly influential retailer. He has been working as a marketer. He is now going back into comic book publishing, and he's bringing with him a tool that he used to build a cybersecurity company to comics, and he's teaching us all how to use it. This quite possibly is the most important piece of an interview that we have done, I think, for comics retailers and marketers of all stripes. On my my recording, it's 1 hour 29 minutes in, so maybe add whatever 2 minutes this runs and to that, and that's where it's going to be. Otherwise, maybe Steph, I don't know, maybe you put on the screen somewhere that what the timestamp is that you're going to jump to. But please don't step away until you get this piece. It's going to change your business. All right. Now, here's me talking to Jason Blanchard. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for doing this. And like when I saw that it was 2 hours, I was like, who's going to listen to me for 2 hours? But hopefully there's something here that's useful, beneficial to the people listening, watching, that they can go like, oh, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that on average, our average view time is somewhere in the 30-minute range. But,
okay, so I got to get the good stuff in the first 30 minutes.
Or we have to tease the good stuff in the first 30 minutes. So we can say, like, you're going to teach any business how to protect themselves from hackers at the end of the show. We can say that now,
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
That's like that way maybe they'll hang on a little bit.
They just go straight to the end. I was doing a webcast recently, and I was telling people, I was like, yeah, if you don't want to, listen to this part, just fast forward. And a Gen Zer was like, you can just click straight to the next part. You don't have to fast forward. And I was like, thanks for making me feel old. So anyway.
Yeah, there are chapter breaks now. You don't have to hit the rewind button. Mm-mm. There's no rewinding.
No.
It's such a strange future that we're living in, and you're living in. I think it's a few minutes ahead of the rest of us. I can tell you that I've been through the work that we've been doing. I can say Prana is been working with BLACKHILLS Information Security and the publishing company called RECA, which is Hacker Backwards, that Jason formed. Mm-hmm. And we've been doing this now for a couple of years. So I get to talk to Jason like 2 or 3 times a week on a regular basis. And I can tell you, though, that there are plenty of times where I feel like, you are, like I said, you're the scariest motherfucker I know. He can really, really mess you up with, telling you about the things that are probably going to happen to you someday.
Yeah. So, first of all, for anyone watching, Adam, thanks for having me on. I love that you're doing this, right? Like, I love the behind the scenes of the comic book industry. Like, it brings me so much joy to see the behind the scenes part of the comic book industry, because from the retailers to the business people to, the people, like most fans go to see the artist, to see the writers. I go to see the people who work behind the scenes. Like my favorite people to talk to are the people who work unseen. Like I don't know if anyone else does this. I go through the credits of a comic book and see if those people are on LinkedIn, and then I connect with them on LinkedIn. Uh,
Of
so
course you do.
in case that's a first tip takeaway is just go through the credits of a comic book, not the writer, not the artist, not the colorist, not the inker, not the letterer, but all those other people. They're on LinkedIn. Just go ahead and add them, then connect with them, because those are future connections.
I don't think I've actually done that. That's really smart. I'm constantly adding anybody who's in the comic book industry on LinkedIn, just because I want to see what they're talking about. Sure. And it just makes it easier when you're trying to make a connection. Mm-hmm. But so actually, this is a great segue into something you've been doing now for, how many years now have you been doing the LinkedIn job hunting like a hacker thing?
Yeah, so if you see me put on my jacket and take off my jacket in here, it's just because the temperature can't get regulated. So it's either hot or it's freezing. It's hot, it's freezing.
Understood.
So the job hunt like a hacker, that started in 2020. It was like March 2020. And I saw people who I thought were untouchable as far as their jobs, their careers, were getting laid off at the beginning of the pandemic. And I was like, oh my goodness, if that can happen to them, it can happen to anybody. So when I was younger, when I was teaching at film school, I was teaching my students how to job hunt in the entertainment industry. And I was teaching them like how to research the companies, how to research who works at the companies, how to call them directly, how to find their Facebook account, how to reach out to people, how to introduce yourself unshamedly, right? Like just reach out, just introduce. When I got into the cybersecurity industry, I learned that was called OSINT, open source intelligence gathering. And I was like, oh, I was doing open source intelligence. I didn't even know, right? Like I didn't know I was doing a thing. And so when I saw how hackers hack their way into companies, right, they do what's called reconnaissance. They research the company. They research the people who work at the company. They look for, any kind of crack in the wall, essentially, of security. And then they do what's called a custom exploit, right? They write something that's very specific to that person or that company to be able to bypass the security protocols that they have. And I was like, okay, so like a custom tailored resume is different than creating like just a blanket resume and spraying and praying it everywhere. So like having a resume that's like completely tailored to the job description where you're like, right? Instead of it like, I did this for 4 years. Like, I don't know if that for 4 years equals this thing I need you to do, right? So just being able to rewrite your job description or your resume to like completely align, and teaching people to go and harvest the bullet points from job descriptions that explain what you are and what you can do. Because I don't know about you, but if I sit down at a blank sheet of paper and try to describe myself, I just stare at a blank sheet of paper.
Right.
But if I find something that describes who I am, I'm like, oh, that's me. That's right. Yeah. So I would teach people, I was like, just go find the bullet points that like say who you are and what you're capable of, and then create a document that just has all your bullet points on it, and then harvest, right? And then use the ones that you need to when it comes time for your resume. And then reach out to the people who actually work at that company, introduce yourself to the people who work at that company, and then get a job there, right? Like, and so many people started doing it that 266 people have found jobs so far. So 266 people have come back to let me know, and I believe that's like 10%, right? So probably like 2,600 people have found jobs, not because of anything I did, but because stuff I said that they applied, right? There's a big difference. You're listening to this podcast right now. You're going to hear me say things, and you're not going to apply most of them. But if you apply some of them, then that's you. You applied it. And so like you doing this podcast, Adam, like you applied information that we talked about. You actually went and did the thing, and you're doing the thing, and you're being successful at the thing. And so it's not just about hearing a thing and saying that's a great idea. It's actually applying the thing. So 266 people have come back to let me know that they get jobs. And what's cool is I get a chance to meet those people from time to time, and someone will come up like, Jason, I'm 138. And I'm like, what's up, right? Like in the first year, I think there was 50, right? In the first year, because it was still the pandemic. And then the second year it was like 150. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. And then it just continued to grow from there. We're at 266. I took about a year off just because I was tired. Pandemic took a toll on me like it did on everybody else.
Wore us all out. Yeah, absolutely.
I was tired. But it is probably the most rewarding thing I do is help people find jobs. And a recruiter one time was like, that's like $7 million in commission, right? And I was like, oh, I did not know that. Uh,
I
yeah.
kind of wish I didn't know that, but
Yeah.
yes.
And it's okay, right? Like, because it just brings me so much joy to see people thriving, to find purpose, and to do those things. So that's the part that I just love that part.
I feel like you and I are going to jump around a whole lot
Sure.
because I feel like you set up something there that I really wanted to talk about. When I first met you, it was because you were giving a panel on social media, which I completely discounted, and you just convinced me that this is something that I should be focusing on. Um, in the time that we've been working together, I think one of the things that has most impressed me about the way that you and Black Hills, the way you run this company and the way you market your services is like I said, it's so generous in that way. I mean, the thing that you're doing, as this guy pointed out, or this person pointed out, you could have made $7 million on, but you just gave this away. So
Yeah.
my question, I guess, is, can you talk a little bit about how that kind of fits in the overall philosophy of how you market Black Hills? And
Yeah.
actually, let's actually take a step back first. Before we do that, what is Black Hills Information Security?
Sure. So Black Hills Information Security is a cybersecurity company that started as a pen testing company. If you don't know what pen testing means, it just means that we hack into companies who give us permission to hack into companies, right? Think of it this way: like, if we go back to medieval times, right? Everyone can think about medieval times. There's castles, there's moats, there's drawbridges, there's guards on the walls. They got bows and arrows. They got people out, with like torches and stuff, looking for anyone trying to sneak into the castle. The castle was the part that was protected, where the king lived, the lord of the manor. That's where the court was held. That's where like the seat of power was. And was the castle safe? Like, that's the main thing. Is the castle safe? And so, back then, what you might do is hire a criminal to, like, hey, can you break into the castle? Right. And like, your job is to be a criminal. You know how to break into castles. So instead of me just waiting for you to break in, how about I pay you to break into my castle and then tell me all the ways you broke into my castle? All right. So just think of it, for years and years and years, we've been implementing security, but we don't know if it actually works or not. And so what you do is you hire a firm like Black Hills Information Security to test the security to make sure it actually is secure. So many of you, like comic book retailers or people who have homes, you have a security system, you have cameras, you have this, you have all kinds of things. You have two-factor authentication on your accounts. You have 6-digit codes that you get when you try to log into something. You believe you have security. I can guarantee you're not as secure as you think you are. But you have enough security to feel safe, right? And most companies, most organizations, most people have enough security to feel safe. And that's why you can go to sleep at night in your bed. And so we're the company that comes along and says, well, not bad, but we were able to do this, this, and this, and this. Does that bother you? And the company goes, that really does, but those don't bother me as much. So they'll fix this one, and then the other ones they learn to live with. So the same thing for anyone listening right now. You've learned to live with a certain amount of risk, and that risk is your risk tolerance. Some people have a low risk tolerance, and some people have a high risk tolerance. Some people, like, imagine like you go to bed tonight without locking your front door. Like, there's some people like, how dare you suggest not locking my front door? But some of you are like, yeah, I unlock my front door where I live and the people I live next to and the kind of environment I'm in. Yeah, I leave my front door unlocked. And other people are like, I have my front door locked. I have the door to my bedroom locked in my own house, right? There's a difference between who feels safe and in what circumstances. So we are the ones that break in essentially to your castle and tell you all the ways we broke into your castle. Also, all the ways we did not break into your castle, which is also important. So that way you go like, oh, the guards on the top that was helpful. The moat was helpful. The drawbridge was helpful. This was helpful. But we didn't realize the vines were growing up the back of the castle that you seemed to climb up. And you figured out the rotation schedule of my arrow guys. And so, okay, so you were able to get in at this time because of this circumstance. And so we're going to switch up how we have the guards on there. We're going to tear down the vines. Like, So that answer your question of what Black Hills?
Absolutely, that really does. But I would say that you didn't. That's where you started.
Sure.
That is the basics of pen testing and cybersecurity in general. What is it? What does Black Hills as a company look like now?
Sure. So we started as a pen testing company, and the owner of our company is a teacher. So he taught people cybersecurity. He taught people how to hack. And because of that, during the pandemic, we started our own training organization called Anti-Siphon Training. So we teach people how to hack and also how to defend themselves from hackers. We take what we do every day, and we say, here's how to do what we do every day. We teach people. We also teach people through print materials. We teach people through comic books. We teach people through anything we can teach people. Like we always say we want the most educated defenders we can possibly go up against. We want a castle that's almost impenetrable. We don't want a castle where you're like, so you don't have a moat, you don't have a drawbridge, you don't have guards, you don't have like, whoa, what are you even doing here? Like, oh no, just come right in. Like, just come on in. So we want like the most educated defenders we can possibly have because it's better for you, it's better for me. I always tell people, I care about your defenses and your security for selfish reasons. Because if your bank, my bank, doesn't care about security, well, that's my money. If like the companies I do business with don't care about my property or my information, then that's not good for me. So we're trying to make the world a better place for you, for everyone listening, for the companies that hire us. So even if people don't hire us, they're still benefiting from the educational materials we put out because we just want people to be better. We have a conference that we run called Wallace Hacking Fest. It's where we bring people together. We also have RECA Publishing, where we started our own publishing company to make comic books because one day I went to the owner and I was like, can I make comic books? And he's like, sure. And then we also
why not?
Yeah, we have a tool that we created called AC Hunter that it was designed to catch us. We realized as hackers that we were not getting caught for this one specific reason. And so we developed a tool to catch hackers for that one specific reason. Because we noticed that the companies we were hacking weren't catching us. And we saw like, well, that's not good. So we started a company to create a tool that catches us. Because if it can catch us, it can catch hackers. And if it catches hackers, you have a more secure company.
When you say hacker, like you carry, I've asked this once before, and it's a clip I think we're going to be able to promoting tomorrow. Actually, I asked this once before of a software engineer who was on the company that does an app called Shortboxed, and he would talk about how they hacked their minimum viable product together. And in the comments, everybody was saying, why would I want to trust a hacker? Hackers are awful people. Mm-hmm. But you guys wear this as a badge of honor, right? This is a title for you.
Yeah.
Why? What do you see that distinction, and why is that different for people?
So whenever I counsel other people who work in cybersecurity marketing, I will always say that hackers can be attackers and attackers can be hackers, but not all attackers are hackers and not all hackers are attackers, right? Like, so hackers is just a term for someone who breaks something to see how it works. Like there's like, how can I use here? Think of it this way. Something can be used for an intended purpose, or it can be used for a different purpose. What hacking is just like, what if I take this intended purpose and I do this, and this to it? Will it do something different? I always think of all kids are hackers because if you hand a kid a toy, like they're going to use it in an unintended like consequence. You're like,
sure.
I had no idea that you would do this with it. Like there's a really good book by Seth Godin called Poke the Box. And it's that when children, if you were to give them a box full of like buttons and toy, like all these different input devices, they will mess with every single one of them. But at some point in elementary school, they start telling you, don't touch that, don't do that, don't do this, don't do this, conform. And then we start losing that, like, what happens if I do this? 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 So hackers are just really people who didn't grow out of that. They're like, what happens if I do this? 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 So when we say we take hack, like the word hacker is a badge of honor, it's like we're just people who go, I wonder what happens if I do this.
Yeah.
I wonder what happens if I do this. I wonder what happens if I do this. Now, attackers are assholes. Sure, they take that same concept, what happens if I do this, to steal your money or to ruin your business or to break in and vandalize. Like, it's the same mindset, but for a different intention. So that's where like I go to hacker conferences where I'm sitting with assholes, and I'm also sitting with the people who will secure it from the assholes. And they're learning the exact same thing, because it's not about the knowledge, it's the intent of what to do with that knowledge. So I don't know if that answered your question.
That absolutely answers my question. And now I feel like we can get back, having laid that groundwork, we can get back to my initial question, which is, tell me about the marketing philosophy of BLACKHILLS, because it is not a small company. And feel free to talk about, the size of it and that sort of thing. But like, how you've been involved in growing it since you've been there, and I know that it has grown exponentially since you've been there. What philosophically brought that on?
Yeah, so I'm employee number 42. Either I was 42 or 43, but I like to say I'm 42 because it's the answer to everything. But
yes,
I'm not the answer to everything. I just like 42. We're at like 140 people now, give or take, depending on contractors and things like that. We've seen the company grow just tremendously over the last 5 years. And the mentality is we have an abundance mentality, meaning there's enough to go around for our competitors. There's enough to go around for everybody. Like, there's enough to go around. We also have enough. So when we reach enough, we give the rest of it away. So we don't live in this scarcity mindset of like, well, if I have this, then that means you don't have it. Or if you have it, that means I don't have it. So let me get as much of it I can for myself, and then watch the rest of you go out of business so that I can get more for myself, right?
Right.
We don't have a scarcity mindset. So when it comes to knowledge, we give all the knowledge away. There is no secret sauce. Are there a couple tools that we sit on for some time just to make sure that they work, to see how they work? And then we give them away. We're like, here's the tools that we're using to do the work that we do. Here you go. You can use them too. So we give away essentially everything that we have. We make money, right? Because we don't want to go out of business. So we always tell people we proudly suck at capitalism. And it is a distinct, like, capitalism is the thing. It's not we proudly suck at socialism. We proudly suck at communism. We proudly suck at authoritarian. Like, we proudly suck at capitalism. Like, our goal is to make money, but we're not making so much money.
Good at it.
Yeah, like, we suck at it. The owner of the company, John, we were in the middle of Wawa's Hack and Fest a couple years ago. So Wawa's Hack and Fest is our conference. And he's up on stage and everyone's getting ready to go have lunch, right? So the entire conference is all eating lunch together, big, huge like meal together. And John was talking about something on stage and he's like, hey, Jason, what do we say when we come up with an idea? And I was like, does it suck at capitalism? He's like, that's right. That's right. And he's like, and if we decide it doesn't suck at capitalism enough, what do we say then? I was like, can we make it suck more at capitalism? And it's like, absolutely. And if we can't come to it, like, can we make it suck a little bit more at capitalism? And so that's the goal, right? Is to like have enough, feel like we have enough, not do it in a way that's scarce, which for me, coming from the comic book industry, I will say it was a mind shift.
Yeah.
A mind shift. Because in the comic book industry, the more scarce something is, the more valuable it is.
Right.
And for us, what we've flipped is that the more abundant it is, the more valuable it is. And it takes a while for you to like go, wait, so if there's more of it, it's worth more? Well, yeah.
Well, this is actually probably a good way of us to talk about your history. So if we look back at the where you grew up, who you became, how you became who you are. Where does that story start, do you think?
You had told me that we were going to talk about this a little bit, and so I was sitting in bed last night thinking of where's my superhero origin story, right?
Yeah.
Just for one moment, the new Ultimate Universe,
it's good.
It's so good because it took 40 years or 50 years of being a comic book fan, and it said he doesn't get bit by the spider.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, like, because it went and found everyone's origin story that we all know so well, and then removed the origin story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, okay, I see it, Hickman.
That is the most valuable thing, is the origin. It's that moment that the light bulb goes on.
Yep.
Yeah,
so,
you're absolutely right.
So I'm laying in bed last night, like, where's Jason's origin story? And I thought about this a lot. I've mentioned this to other people, but my origin story starts at age 12, getting my bike stolen from the park.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm at the park. My mom told me to lock up my bike. I did not lock up my bike. And so I come back after playing and my bike is gone.
Yeah.
And so I do the walk of shame home where I don't have a bike. And I get back home and I'm 12 years old and I ask my mom, my bike got stolen. Can I have another one? And she did the kindest thing she could do. And she says, no, but there's a bike store down the street. Go see if they're willing to hire you. So I did that. So I walked, the mile down to the bike store, and I was like, hi, can I work here to earn a bike? They said, you can clean up on the weekends. You can clean the bathrooms. You can sweep the floors. You can, clean up all the glass. You can work for a couple hours, store credit essentially.
Yeah.
And then you can earn a bike. And I did. So I worked there for about a year and a half, and I earned 3 bikes, right? I earned one for me. I earned one for my mom, one for my stepdad. They got into skateboards, so I had skateboards. I had all the wheels. I had all those things. But here's where it goes. Here's where it takes it. A comic book store opened next to them.
Oh, okay.
And comic books were better than bikes. And I already had a bike. So I did the same thing. I walked in, I was like, hi, can I work here to earn money for comics? And they said, sure. And so I started bagging and boarding comics. They had bought all these collections, and they were old collections. And so that's what I did. I bagged and boarded comics for $2 an hour store credit, which, looking back on it now, was just the worst.
Robbery.
Yes. But it's like 1993-ish. So
right, sure. Yeah.
But while I was working there, the death of Superman happened, right? While I was working there, Image Comics launched. While I was working there, it was the golden age of 90s comic books, and I was there. I was in the store while it was happening, and the store did so well that it got a 4 times bigger location, in the next shopping center over. And by the time I was 14, I was the assistant manager of the comic book store. I knew the customers by name. I knew what they wanted. I had their subscriptions down. I was doing the ordering because the owner was in the back room playing Champions. That's what he did most of the time. One of my favorite things was having an entire box of Spawn #1s. I don't know if anyone remembers this. But when one would sell off the wall for $20, you just go back and grab another one, stick it in bag and board, and you put it up for $20. It was printing money back then.
It really was.
It was ridiculous. But Valiant, it was Rise Zeros up on the wall.
Oh man,
it was such a great time for comics. And then here's where it takes a tragic turn. Right?
Okay.
I ride my bike up, same bike that I got. And the comic book store was closed. I was on spring break. I ride my bike up. Spring break's over, and I can't wait to get back to working. And the store was closed. And I called the owner. I was like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Comic book industry just imploded. We're out of business." I was like, "What?" And it was that time where the 2-month orders.
Yeah.
Right, that whole you pre-order and then you buy all the stuff. Well, the orders were just coming in. The customers weren't. And his orders and invoices just got too big, and he just went out of business. And I'm 14, 15 years old, and I just lost my job and the place that I went, where my community was, where my people were. So I got into girls and drugs at that point. So
That'll do it.
yeah,
So is that 96, 97, right around there?
yeah, right around then.
Yeah.
And then I joined the Army to make sure I straightened my life out, because I saw a path for myself that if I stayed on this path, I'd end up in jail. If I went down this path, I'd at least have a career. So I became a combat cameraman in the military. And I didn't read comics for a long time until like 2001. So in 2001, I was visiting my dad here in Maryland. At the time I lived in Florida, visiting my dad in Maryland. And he got me a gift card for Christmas for Collector's Corner.
Oh yeah, Randy and his crew.
Randy.
Yeah.
I had a gift card, and you know why? Because my dad hadn't seen me in a long time. And he was like, "The last time I saw you, like comics."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Yeah,
Dad.
So I went in, and Randy's was
15
there.
years ago, Dad.
Yeah.
15 years ago.
So Randy's the one that helped me. And
oh yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
Randy's, because it was a super tiny store.
Yeah.
So small. Like, I think there was only room for like 4 of us in the whole store. And I went in and I was like, hey, I kind of liked X-Men back then. And he's like, well, the Ultimate X-Men just came out. And I was like, cool, I'll take Ultimate X-Men #1. And he's like, well, that's, it's probably like $75 at this point or something, And he's like, but we have the trade for it. And I was like, what's a trade? Like, right? Like, I did not know. Like, it had been a while.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, it's a collection of the first 5 or 6 issues. And I was like, is it worth anything? Right? Like that scarcity model. Like,
right.
Well, is it worth anything? And he's like, well, it's a good story. And I was like, all right, well, I'll use my gift card on that. So I got it. I read it on the plane back home. And all of a sudden I was like, I love comics again. It got me right back into it. When I got back to Orlando where I lived, I found a local comic shop. That's where I met Aaron Holland. Aaron from a comic shop. That was like 2002. I shopped at the store for a couple of years. I started helping him with his marketing. For store credit, I have a
You have a pattern.
I have a pattern.
Did he do? I mean, was it more than $2 an hour?
It wasn't much more than $2 an hour. I think it was like $75 a month, right? But it was also at the beginning of MySpace, so it was like,
oh,
hey,
sure,
I'll do your social media marketing for you. Like, I know how to make content. I know how to create stuff. So I'll do this. We did some photo shoots with models, because that was some work I was doing at the time.
Yep.
So we did that, and I'd visit him, and I was like, how's your store doing? And he's like, never been better. I was like, cool. A month goes by, how you doing? Never been better. Month goes by, never been better. Month goes by. And so eventually I was like, do you want a business partner? And he's like, oh God, no. No, not at all. And I was like, So I eventually had to put a PowerPoint presentation together of how my business partnership, a 50-50 partnership with Aaron Holland, would actually be more helpful for him than me taking half of his money. So I took out a second mortgage on my house. Took out a mortgage. I also had to give the same PowerPoint presentation to my wife. She was like, I don't know.
I will say that it's we both work in business. We're both used to having to build PowerPoint presentations. Mm-hmm. I've never seen a culture more addicted to PowerPoint presentations than the hacker community you introduced me to. You guys love a deck. You just love a deck.
Yeah, cybersecurity. Yeah,
man,
that's the primary way to display information. So I became Aaron Holland's business partner. We owned a comic shop. If I can, I still have the
oh yeah, you do. Look at that.
Still have the tattoo on my back. Got that right when we opened up the store. He got one, I got one. And for the next 5 years, did comic shop. Did it really well.
You say it was, you've said this a couple times, and I'm curious to know how you back it up. The most influential comics retailer, I think you say, of all time. How do you back that up?
Okay. So that's a bold statement.
It is a bold statement.
To say the most influential comic book store of all time. And the reason why I'll back it up is because we were at a point where comic book retailing was changing.
Yeah.
And so I still feel like 2002 to 2012 was like a golden time for comics as far as what Marvel was doing and DC was doing and what the other companies were doing. It was just phenomenal, the work that was being done. And so to the creators and everyone else there, well done. But we had this philosophy at the store that, and I apologize for any retailer who's watching this who's like, I also had that philosophy. What, you don't think I did? Like, no, I need you to go back to 2005. All right, 2005, 2006. And we had this thing at the store. It's like, I want you to think about the amount of creativity that goes into coming up with a story, the amount of creativity that goes into drawing that story, the amount of creativity that goes into coloring that story, lettering that story, packaging that story, marketing that story, and getting a retailer to then get that story and then put it on the shelf. The retailer has to put as much creativity into selling that to people as what was put into making it in the first place. And so that's what we did at the shop. We were like, how can we creatively sell this in a way that's going to honor the work that was done in the comic book itself and honor the person who's going to read it and say like, hey, check this out. And so we did that. We did that like nonstop for years. And then I don't know if this has ever happened before, or if I was the first, but it felt weird. I called Marvel and I called DC and I was like, we'd like to have a business meeting.
Okay.
And Marvel was like, so you want like a tour? It's like, no. No, I want to have a business meeting. I was like, I want to meet with David Gabriel. I want to sit down with him. I want to talk with him about all the stuff we're doing to sell Marvel comics and how we can partner together to sell more. And it was like so you want like a tour? So David might remember this differently, but like, and then same thing with DC Comics. I was like, we want to come. We want to have a business meeting. Like with who? And I was like, I don't know. Someone who works in selling comics to retailers. I'm a retailer. I'd like to meet with you. So we moved, like essentially we went to New York City without having like an actual meeting prepared.
You just showed up at New York saying, I want a meeting. I'm here. I want a meeting.
Yeah, we want to meet. Like our contact at DC is like, yeah, come on by. Right. There was no like conference room sit down meeting planned. It was just come on by when you're in New York. So we went to New York and we went to DC and we're walking through and Stuart Schreck gave us a tour. Because it was a tour, and he's walked us around, and he took us to Matt. I'm trying to Matt Keller.
Yeah, he's still there.
Yeah, and I love Matt Keller. Matt Keller, if you're watching this, you're one of my favorite people in all of comic books, and it's because of what you did next in this story. So walk in, and we had this binder, like a giant binder of all the things that we'd done at the store, the community building, all the ways we were selling comic books. And I was like, Matt, you sell comics. Can I talk to you? And he's like, sure. And I sat down in Matt's office and I started opening up this binder. And he's like, what are you showing me? And I was like, look at all the stuff we're doing. Look at all the stuff we're making. And he saw this one thing that we created. It was like pretty much now that you read Watchmen, because the Watchmen movie had just come out. And so we had this thing of all the things to read if you liked Watchmen. And he's like, can I have that? And I was like, sure. So I gave that to him. We finished up the meeting. Steve Rotterdam calls us up to his office. We're now sitting down with Steve Rotterdam. We're talking about retailer stuff. And then the next day we had a meeting with David Gabriel. Much different style of meeting. Also, David, thank you. I appreciate you placating me for the time that we were in there. But we sat down and like that's when I'm saying we're the most influential comic book store because we didn't wait for Marvel to come to us. Like we went to Marvel. We didn't wait for DC to come to us. We went to DC. And then Matt sends us a thing like a couple weeks later. He's like, is this what you wanted? It was after Watchmen. What's next? It was the dollar books.
Whoa.
Yeah. So the dollar books were created because of that meeting with Matt Keller. And then Marvel copied them and did the dollar books. And then we went to Image and we said, hey, you should do dollar books too. And then Image is like, well, we don't want to copy them. It's like, you're not copying Marvel and DC. That was our idea, to do the dollar books of your best-selling trades, to get it into the hands. I was like, because if I'm willing to spend like this much money on a free comic book day book, I'm willing to spend this much money on a dollar book that I can then hand somebody that they can then read and then come back and buy the trade.
Right.
And so, we got Image to do it. We were talking to Dark Horse, and Dark Horse was like, well, we don't want to copy Image, DC, and Marvel. I'm like, you're not, you're copying us. So we, at one of the cons, we sat down and wrote out what all of the dollar books should be for Dark Horse, and they ended up doing those. And so that was just one of the things that we did that had that influence on the comic book industry. Like, we created, I don't know if you know like how this worked, but we created the world's first graphic novel rental program.
I remember this, and I actually remember trying my own version of it based on what you guys did.
Yeah. So during the 2008 financial collapse, we realized that our customers had limited funds. So we created a rental program for graphic novels where people could rent it for 30% of the overall cover price. But here was the part that really made it work, that a book only got into the rental program if it was traded into the rental program for them to get credits to read the other books in the rental program.
Yes, right. I do remember this.
So if you had the whole collection of Why Last Man, you could turn that in and get credits to read all of Walking Dead. Or if you had all of Walking Dead, you could turn it in to read all of this. So what happened was rental customers came in twice a week. Like, they came in more often.
Right.
And what happened was they came in so often that I was able to go like, hey, Frank, do you know Jim? Jim, do you know? And so the customers there was hitting a critical mass inside the store where they all started to get a chance to meet each other. And so we saw the value in the community. And Aaron was very good at this from the very beginning. He was always like, we're throwing parties, we're throwing release parties, we're doing like signings, we're doing these things, we're getting people in the store so they could meet each other, not so they could hang out with us, so they could meet each other. And so eventually we ended up opening a bar inside the comic book store called the Speakeasy, or the Geekeasy.
The Geekeasy.
The Geekeasy. And that really was just the next evolution of people hanging out with each other, meeting each other, because comic books is a very solitary activity. I buy it, I read it to myself, and then maybe I go on a message board, maybe I talk to other people about it. But for the most part, I just read it and I like it.
Yeah.
But what we were really good at is, Adam, I know what you like, and I know what Fred likes. And so how about I have the two of you talk about what you like together? And so that's,
I would say that in many ways, our store was, I think that the 2000s especially was the first time we all started connecting online. Like there were things, social media was really just beginning with forums. And I remember, like I said, I think I completely swiped the graphic novel trade program. I know that we did like a geek singles night. Like we did stuff like that really, I think some of your stuff we just swiped completely. But the geek singles night was what got us on the CBS Morning News. And there's still a video that on the internet of Mo Rocca like interviewing us, which is a huge moment. But again, I think a lot of that just came from that. That was a conversation amongst retailers really for the first time, was this, you guys sharing the stuff that we were doing. We would share the stuff that we were doing. Everybody could post pictures for the first time. It was huge. It was, it seems almost silly now to think how it's almost quaint that it was so exciting. Right. But it was an incredible time.
So the other last thing about being influential is that I think we were the only comic shop with like 22,000 followers online.
Right.
Like we had transcended this local comic book store in Winter Park, Florida, to being like America's comic book store at that time. People were coming to us to get their news, what books you should get that week. Like this was before CBR. CBR was doing some stuff, but we were like a comic shop. We were syndicated on Bleeding Cool, where we had our weekly top picks, which was cool because people would come to Orlando and they'd hop in a car and drive from the Orlando International Airport, which was a straight shot, visit the store, and then go to Disney World. or they'd visit the store on the way back from Disney World. Right? So, and a lot of times people would come in and like, this is it?
Huh.
Right? Because online it was so exciting, so much fun. And then they catch us on like an off Tuesday and they come in and think, where's the party? Where's the...
It's like, you know, Bart Simpson showing up at the Mad magazine offices and, you know, saying, where's all the crazy stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then one more thing. This is one of my favorites. So during that time, like of social media, like first catching on, and Facebook first catching on, I knew that I could get an ad, and I could run it where you lived, Adam, like where you lived, and I could target the people who followed your store's Facebook page in your zip code, and I would run an ad that says the best comic shop in America is in Orlando, Florida, with the comic shop logo. And I did that at the top like 40 stores in America. So, and it cost me like $1.02 a day, right? Like $1.02 a day. And so it was like $40 a day. And I would just run that for like 2 or 3 months before a retailer get together.
Yeah.
So when I would go to a retailer get together, I was like, hi, I'm Jason from a comic shop. They're like,
you're the guy. Yeah, very, very much. I could definitely see you pulling that off. You were the first that I knew of that was doing a regular video show, which is, you know, it's very commonplace now. Yeah, you guys were absolutely groundbreaking. How did that end for you? It was, you know, it was a great run. You guys were incredibly influential, incredibly successful. How did you decide to move in? Because you really moved from there into cybersecurity, right?
Kind of.
I'm sorry. There's a whole section there of Free Comic Book Day.
So when you run hard and run fast for a long period of time, you get tired.
Yeah.
I was immature. I was young. Aaron was immature. He was young. The staff was immature. We were young. Like, we were revolutionaries, but we were also like tired revolutionaries.
That happens. Right?
Yeah. So to be the most influential store, you had to keep doing influential things. So to try to one up ourselves all the time and all the time and all the time and all the time, it was exhausting. And so it got to a point where I remember the day Aaron, and he may remember it differently. He's like, what if we didn't do these things? Like, what if we just did nothing?
What if we just sold comic books for a while?
I was like, Well, then what will I do? So at that point, I was like, I think it's time. It's been 5 just fantastic years. And so I sold my half of the store back to Aaron. So Aaron went back to owning the store himself. And I went to LA for a little while just to explore Los Angeles. And then my wife got a job in Maryland. And so my wife works in cybersecurity. And so she got a job opportunity in Maryland. So we moved to Maryland. And when I got here, I was like, oh, crap. What is a former teacher who just knows comic books? Crap, where am I going to work?
Combat photography.
I don't have any usable job skills. Like, there was that, do I have usable job skills? Crap. And so
I do this every few years. I think maybe I should just quit comics.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do?
Right.
Yeah.
So the day I started looking for jobs was the day that Diamond posted that they were looking for a new marketing manager. And I was in the same town as Diamond. So I do what I do. I applied, but then I called Diamond. I was like, hey, who's responsible for this job? And it was Dan Manzer.
Yes.
I was like, hey, Dan, I'm Jason. I used to work at a comic shop. He was like, I know you. And Chris Powell knew me. So he had just gone over to head the retail stuff. And because of all the work I had done, because of speaking at retailer events and things like that for Diamond, it was a no-brainer for them to bring me in. And I managed Free Comic Book Day for the next 2 years before I got into cybersecurity. And then just real quick, I got in cybersecurity in 2015. My wife saw a job posting for cybersecurity for a training organization called SANS. It's the SANS Institute. And it was for penetration testing, right? So pen testing for ethical hacking. And she's like, hey, I think you'd be really good at this. And so I looked at it, and I was like, like I was at Free Comic Book Day. I was enjoying it. But I was like, all right, I'll apply, see what happens. And the guy that like ran the department, the organization, he saw my comic book history, and he's like, that's what I want. He's like, I want someone who knows how to tell a creative story. I want someone who knows how to package a creative story. I want someone who can, identify and like build community, because that's what we're looking for. And so I almost didn't get the job because of my comic book history. Like the VP of marketing, I was like, I don't know. It's just kind of you're like a mess. Okay. But Ed Scotus.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. So Ed Scotus is the guy that was like, no, I need this. I need this skill set. And so he hired me. And so essentially, like really what I did is I just applied everything I did in the comic book industry to cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And I became an anomaly in cybersecurity, which is why it worked, right? Because nobody was doing the kind of stuff I was doing in cybersecurity because they were all doing cybersecurity marketing things. They weren't doing comic book marketing things in cybersecurity, which is what made it very unique.
Yeah, it broke through. It broke through. It created signal where there was noise.
Yeah.
Talk about then. I think that there's Deb, who is your right hand person. Deb and I were talking about how we went to this hack fest in Deadwood, South Dakota a couple months ago. And it was an eye-opening event for me. And I was asking her, is all of cybersecurity like this? And she said something along the lines of, more of it is now, but it wasn't like this not that long ago.
Yeah.
So talk about the difference between cybersecurity culture when you entered into it and where it is now.
Yeah, in 2015, it was already starting to evolve to what it is today, but it was a scarcity mindset. So around that same golden age of comic books, 2002 to 2012, that was when penetration testing was becoming an actual thing, right? Because in the 90s, you were just a hacker, and you probably got caught hacking, and then they were like, you can either go to jail or you can do it for good. All right, I'll do it for good.
I want to go to jail.
That was like the 90s. And then like in the early 2000s, there was a couple of people like, what if we could turn this into a career? And so in the very beginning.
Before we get caught.
Yes. So Ed Scotus is one of those guys. Like he wrote the first book on ethical hacking. Like what if we turn this into an actual profession? So but in the beginning, it was all about being LEET. So it's 1337. So if you take a look at 1337, I think if you flip it upside down, it's LEET, LEET. So it stands for elite. So hackers were always trying to out-hack each other. There was things called stunt hacking where they're like, if I'm on a plane traveling at this distance, I could break into this car doing this exploit. And there's a hacker right now watching this going, Jason, that never happened. I know I'm being real hyperbolish right now. There was, this actually did happen where a hacker was on a plane and he said on Twitter, I was able to hack into the entertainment display and I made the plane like shift. That's not true. He was just effing around, but the authorities were waiting for him when he landed, right?
Just for tweeting that he had done.
Just for tweeting that, yes.
Oh my God.
So like there was this period of time where there's a lot of like stunt hacking going on, a lot of LEET. Only I have the tool, only I have the capability, only I have the ability to do this. And then it was around 2010, 2012 where some of them got together, like guys like Dave Kennedy, who owns Trusted Sec, which is another company that's fantastic in cybersecurity. There's John Strand, who owns our company. There's some of the other people who worked at the Sands Institute, and they were like, what if, hitting that button again, what if we were kind? What if we were like had an abundant mindset? What if we just built community? What if we brought people together? What if we did this? What if we did this? And so in around 2012 or so, it started to shift. And it took a while. It took a while before people, like when I first got in the hacker industry, no one used their real names. They went by their hacker handles. So even I was Banjo Crashland for like the first couple of years, because that was my hacker handle. I'm like, hi, I'm Banjo Crashland. I'm not Jason Blanchard. And Banjo Crashland is just an anagram of Jason Blanchard all mixed together. So it's the letters Jason Blanchard, Banjo Crashland. And so we all used hacker handles. We didn't give up our names. We didn't take pictures at HackerCons because, if someone took your picture at a HackerCon, that means you were at a HackerCon.
Right.
And so that could be used against you, or it could be used to, or there's a criminal in the background of your photo. Like, and so the FBI might be like, oh, there he is. Right. Like, so there was this culture of like secretiveness, even like at DEF CON. I believe it's still this way. Like you pay in cash for your badge, right? There is no traceability of you being at DEF CON. There are some cons for a long time. There was no traceability of you being there. You didn't pay a credit card. You didn't use anything. Like I came, I left. No one knows I was here. And so there was privacy, anonymity. There was all kinds of things. But around 2015, especially in 2019, when the pandemic hit, like in 2020, like it shifted to like, hi, I'm Jason Blanchard, right? Like, hi, I'm a human being that does hacking instead of a hacker that happens to be a human being, right? So there was a shift there. And then there are cons that are not like that. There's RSA, which is, to my friends at RSA, I love you. You know what you guys do. I appreciate you. But RSA is it's the suits version of cybersecurity. Like everyone's in a blazer top, right?
Right.
So I wear a blazer. I'm a venture capitalist, and you're like, okay. So there's definitely a culture of community, and then there's a culture of business, and most of those two don't mix that often, because there's a lot of money in cybersecurity. A lot.
Sure.
There's a lot of money in cybersecurity, but I don't know. I think I meandered there. What was your question?
No, I think you did great. I think you did talk about that was really about the history of that culture. And so I do want to go back to now that you've left Sands, you've ended up in Black Hills, and it feels like you've gotten into the place that you belong 100%. Like I've never, now having known you for 20 years, I've never seen you happier, even when you guys were breaking shit and being so loud. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a big eye-opening event for me was when we were at that Hack Fest, and the final night where they're giving out awards is happening, and John gets up and he gives out 2 awards. There are 2 official awards that are given out. One is for the best volunteer, their favorite volunteer of the year. And another is and this is like, we're not saying like they're not giving out awards for best hacker or even best company or best event or whatever. It's the best volunteer and the most kind attendee.
Mm-hmm.
It was eye-opening for me. I want that for comics. Like I want that kind of culture for comics, and I hope that Prana can be some agent of change for that. But talk to me about, you still run a company, right? You're still in the lead generation business for creating these, this big revenue that this company needs in order to employ this 140 people or whatever. Like, talk about how you, as the head of marketing or whatever it is you call yourself, because I know Debs doesn't have marketing in the title.
Yeah, she's the director. She's the director of kindness and generosity. It's her official title at the company. My title is the content community director, because hackers don't like marketing. So I was like, all right, I'm not in marketing. I'm content community. That's what I do. everything I do is selfish, right? Like everything everyone does is selfish. So I'm
Sure.
selfishly here today to talk to you, and I'm working with you, and because I want to save comics, and that's not in like a like, oh, Jason can save comics. So like, no, like, hold on. I love comics. I've loved comics since I was a kid. I've loved comics at different periods of my life. I love comics. I work at a cybersecurity company. I was like, what if we made comics, right? Like, uh, I love comics. I couldn't get away from it. And so when you mentioned the like giving out awards to the people, the attendees, like when I see a comic book convention, it's flipped. Like it's
Yeah.
the attendees are the heroes of that convention, but we're coming and we're standing in line to meet our heroes, the writers, the creators, and it like it's flipped. Like, what if the creators were there to meet the attendees? And I know some of you are. You're there to meet the fans, meet the people. Like, but what if the fans, you came for the fans? And I know there's going to be some people who are like, but I do that. No. What if you built a community for the fans? What if you built a community for people to get together? What if you know that, Fred and Adam both like this story? So what if you get them a chance to meet each other so that they can become friends, that they can, because when I see a comic book convention, I see a lot of people walking around alone, waiting to meet a hero.
Yeah. And a lot of people, like it's an entire culture of people that are there alone, waiting to meet some. Yeah. To summarize it. Yeah.
And so when I see that, I'm like, well, how can we bring the people together? How can we give an award for my best fan of the year? How can I give an award for the person who runs my message board I think Bendis did this better than anyone else, and why I think the 2002 to 2012 was like the golden age of comics. It's because of Brian Michael Bendis, right?
Yeah.
The Bendis boards was like this community for creators and for fans and for people to all hang out together. And that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
So when you come to Hackenfest and you see the community there, like, yeah, there's people who get up on stage. There's people who create tools. There's people who've been doing hacking for 20 years. There's people who do this, but like there is no hero at Wallace Hackenfest, except for the people who attend. Like everyone's the hero at that event. The reason we gave out an award to the most kind person, Luke, if you're watching, Luke, because holy crap, Luke became the glue for so many people at that event. I've kept in touch with Luke since that event. We made him a friend of BHIS and the Discord server that we run. Like Luke, holy crap, well done, Luke. And then Shira, who won the Volunteer of the Year. All right, so back to that, us being a business. Shira has introduced me to more organizations where I've gotten a chance to teach and introduce our company to more people than anyone else I know. Shira has, and here's the other part about Shira. She's making sure like the food supply of America is safe. She's making sure that the broadband network of rural America, where our food is grown, is safe, where the electricity of rural America is safe. Like that's what Shira does for a living. And so for her to like introduce me in the game that we created called Backdoors and Breaches to all these different cybersecurity professionals that are protecting the food supply of the United States. Like,
you know what I love about this is you and I are talking about this and I can feel the eye rolling, right? I can feel, because I know many of the people who listen to this podcast and I know how serious they are about their businesses. And I can feel them saying, okay, right. You know, he wants generosity where scarcity, where FOMO is what sells, right? He wants kindness and generosity and focusing it on the fans where we know that, it's the creators, it is the heroes who sell. Like I can hear them saying that. But what I love about this is that those people are running comic book companies, and the thing that is saving the world, the thing is this kindness and generosity. It is this this is education. It's this freely giving of information to say, think about how to protect, think about, here are the lessons that we have learned, we also want you to learn them. I think that's incredible, because it's literally saving the world, because we need food.
Yeah,
that's mind-boggling. Well, all right, I feel like I started this off and we got it kind of, we diverged. How does it work though? Right. So you are giving this out. You guys do all of these classes that many of them you give away for free, or they are pay what you can. You do all of this programming. You're like the stuff you do on LinkedIn. How all of that grow Black Hills?
Okay. So here's how it works. I'll boil it down to one word: trust.
Okay.
Like that's how it works. So let's go back to the castle analogy, right? You're the king, you have a castle, you've put security in place, but you need to hire someone to test that security. Do you hire the criminal, or do you hire someone who's not a criminal who also knows how to do the task?
Right.
So what happens is, if you want to ask someone to test the security of your house, you're not going to hire someone you do not trust. You're going to hire someone that you trust explicitly. And so what we do is we build, establish, and maintain trust. That's what we do. So by giving away knowledge, you're saying, I am a trustworthy person. By bringing people together, you're saying, I'm a trustworthy person. By like creating and giving away materials, I'm saying I'm a trustworthy person. I'm going to follow through on what I said I was going to do. If I said I'm going to do something of quality, it's going to be quality. If I said I'm going to do something by this time, I'm going to do something by this time. If I said I'm going to give this away, I'm going to give this away. So we're creating trust. I think everyone's in the trust business. Everybody.
100%.
Like comic book retailers are in the trust business. And here's how I know. This is where it came from. Someone comes into my store for the very first time.
Yeah.
All right. So Adam, you had a store. Think of the person who comes in for the very first time.
Sure.
And they are skeptical of comic books. They are like, I've heard, there's TV shows, there's this, but I'm in for the first time. And they walk in, and then what do you see? Dollar signs? Like, or do you see like a person who goes, I'm going to introduce you to your new favorite comic.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to know you. I'm going to find out what your likes, what you're into. And then I'm going to say, I think this is the one for you. And then they're going to go home, they're going to read it, and they're going to go, that was the thing for me. And then they're like, I want more of that. Right. And then they come back in and they say, well, what else do you have? Right. They trust you. They trust you to care more about them than their wallet.
100%.
And for those of you that are into like collecting stuff and like it's a 9.8, the scandal of like the CGC comics being broken into, like
and
CGC they're in the trust business.
Yeah.
That is 100% trust business.
Yeah. Oh.
And so if you can't trust CGC, then the whole business falls apart.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And it's been incredible watching them deal with that, right? Because they quite literally got hacked, in public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Insane. So, why does it work for Black Hills? It's because we build, maintain, and establish trust, right? We build, establish, maintain trust. We establish, build, and maintain trust. Like it's about trust. We actually call like the work that we do trust activities.
Trust activities.
Yeah. So far this year, we've had 2,369 opportunities to create trust. Out of all the things that we've done, all the different webcasts we've done, all the different events we've done, all the different things that we've created, we've done 2,369 opportunities to create trust this year. And I also tell my team, we've also had 2,369 opportunities to destroy trust this year.
Yeah.
Because in whatever you do, it is the ability to build trust or destroy trust, depending on what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Wow. And so when you are thinking along those lines, like that the stakes are very high once you start realizing that it's not just this is not just a top of funnel thing where
Yeah.
I'm going to create a lead and then I get to work that lead. This is, I mean, you really do add stakes to every interaction that way.
Yeah.
What
And
is
we don't treat anyone as leads, right?
Yeah.
We don't even use that term because someone who trusts us may take that trust and give it to someone else and say, trust this company.
Yeah.
So not everyone is a lead. Some people are just fans. Some people just like the work that we're doing. Some people just like, or like they will never have the ability to use our services ever.
Right.
And when I think about the comic book industry, like they may never buy your comic. Okay? Like, would you still be kind to them?
I mean, I want to say yes,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there is also a limited number of resources in any
Really,
given day,
yeah.
and you're going to spend it where it can grow,
Yeah.
right? So, do you spend all of your time with those fans who are never going to be? I mean, you have to make those decisions,
For
right?
sure.
Because otherwise, you're going to lose the trust of those that are keeping you around. Yeah, I can see that as an ongoing exercise in diligence. Like you really do have to remain diligent there. All right, well, so how does RECA Publishing, and you've been wearing this t-shirt this whole time, so
Sure.
people should finally understand what RECA, where that refers to. How does that build trust?
Yeah.
Or is
First of all, for me, it says hacker on it. I don't know. Is it backwards for you? Yeah.
I have, because of working with you, I have so much swag now, and I get to wear that stuff in public. I love wearing that in public because the like confusion and like
Yeah.
a concentration, and then the emotional reaction they get, like when they figured it out. It's fascinating to watch complete strangers deal with that. Just that logo. Yeah.
Yeah. The day I came up with it was super simple. And then watching what the community did with it, I was like, oh, I didn't realize I made something successful.
Yeah.
Because the community just like really like leaned into it.
Yeah.
And so I think there's like 2,000 RECA hoodies that exist right now. And you can go somewhere and you go to a conference, you see someone wearing a RECA hoodie, and you're like, you're one of my people. I'm going to go talk to you. So what was your question?
How does RECA Publishing, how does that build trust? How does this go to the overall goal of Black Hills?
Yeah. So RECA Publishing, you have to imagine I'm working at a cybersecurity company. The owner of the company is just a year older than me. So we have pretty much the same kind of background. He played Battle Mech in the 80s, right? Like he did role-playing games. He's done Dungeons and Dragons. Like you don't get in cybersecurity by like playing football, like
by not being a nerd. I will tell you, just to skip ahead, I will tell you, John Strand, he often will do like these presentations just for like the 3 or 4 of us working on this.
Yeah.
And they are so deep nerd shit. They're like, he goes, like he will reference some sci-fi novel that he read 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we've been doing webcasts. We've been doing all these things for years. And then I watched my peers, right? People in the same industry do the same thing. And then they had success with that thing. And so that's cool, right? Like the abundance model, like, all right, cool. Like more knowledge is being shared. More people are helping. More people are doing this. More people are doing that. And then it was like, well, what can we do that no one else is doing? Like, I'm always like, well, what can we do that no one else is doing? And then back to that whole, like my whole history is like, what if we did this? 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 So I went to the owner, John Strand, and his wife. So both of them own the company together. And I had this pitch, right? It was like a 4-page Word document with like, bullet points and sub bullets. And I was like, I would like to start a comic book publishing company. Its sole purpose is to be so good that it wins awards, and it's about cybersecurity. Right. So that was the first part. And then I was like, well, we could do this and we can do this. We can do this. We can do this. We can do this. So I get done through the whole thing. And John, some clarity questions. He's like, okay, all right. Do you think this will make any money? I was like, no. No.
Almost certainly no.
No. He's like,
no.
He's like, do you think it will make the money back? I was like, no. Maybe.
I want to say maybe. I feel like I think, what we have planned, it's a hard maybe.
For sure. And then he's like, will it be fun? I was like, oh, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun. So for us, it gives us a reason to work with comic book creators. It gives us a reason to work with creative people. It gives us a reason to reach out to people who are not in cybersecurity, to introduce them to cybersecurity concepts. Like there's someone watching this right now that works in the comic book industry that has heard me talk about hacking or heard me talk about these things that are now like more knowledgeable about hacking. Like I could talk for the next 1 minute about why you should enable two-factor authentication on all of your accounts. You should get Google Authenticator onto your phone. And then you should have Google Authenticator on all of your accounts. So that way, when you go to log in, it asks you for a 6-digit code. You go into your Google Authenticator, you get that 6-digit code, and then you put in that 6-digit code. And the reason why is because over the next couple of years, SIM swapping will become even worse than it already is. And SIM swapping is where someone takes over your phone number, and then they use that to go to your bank.
Somebody just took over your phone.
Yeah. They go to your bank, they pretend to be you, and then they wire transfer all your money out of your account to some other account. And that's going to be common over the next couple of years. And so if you don't have two-factor authentication and you're like, wait a second, you just said my phone's going to be stolen. Like, yes, but Google Authenticator is not SMS, which means you actually have to have access to your phone in order to have that 6-digit code, which is why I want you to get Google Authenticator and enable two-factor authentication. Right? So we want to bring cybersecurity to the comic book industry.
I'm using LastPass Authenticator for most things. Is that okay?
LastPass is pretty good.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, as long as you can remember your LastPass password, and your LastPass password is at least 15 characters.
It's way more than 15 characters.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What street did you grow up on?
Huh?
What street did you grow up on?
I'm sure you can actually look that up.
What is your mother's maiden name? What was the name of your first pet?
Just no reason I'm asking. Yeah. There's no reason.
No reason.
Yes. So
we want to bring cybersecurity to the comic book industry. We want to bring comic books to the cybersecurity industry because comic books is so much fun. Art is fun, stories is fun, and cybersecurity is full of so many stories. We're supporters of a podcast called Darknet Diaries. We've made Darknet Diaries comic books, which is what this big poster is. It's based on a episode of Darknet Diaries.
Such a great cover too, by the way. I know I've mentioned this to you before, but I love that cover.
Yeah, it turned out really well. So it gives us a chance to tell stories of how people can protect themselves from possible attackers in a way that's educational, it's fun, it's interesting. We give away so many comic books to K through 12 organizations, colleges, cybersecurity programs. We give them the comics and then they share it with whoever needs to share it. They're learning about what hacking is like inside the comics themselves. We give a breakdown of all the tools that are used to do the actual hacking. We give here's what social engineering means. Here's what a phish means. Here's what this means. Here's what that means, so that we can educate people so that they're not getting attacked by threat. We call them threat actors.
Threat actors.
Yeah.
Assholes.
Yeah, assholes.
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah. So why are we doing comics? It's fun.
Yes.
It gives us a purpose to that whole educational thing. And then lastly, the reason why we're doing The Future Is comic, it takes place in the future. All right. So the selfish part here is when you are focused on what the future of technology will be like, then you can start focusing on how it'll be misused and abused. And then if you start focusing on how it'll be misused and abused, then you know how it's going to be. What if I do this? 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 And so we can start looking at how those things are going to be hacked. So these are our main characters. We got Wheeler here. We have Martina. We have Sally. We have Eli, and we have Arf. What you don't see is there's a character named Art, who's a sentient AI that uses the dog as a way of getting around from place to place. And so these are essentially like hackers, pirates, pirates that are taking our good guys hostage. And then what they're doing is they're above a server farm. And if you don't know this, there are organizations that are building server farms underneath the water because it helps keep it cool, because servers generate a lot of heat. And so there will be legacy server farms because the technology that gets created over the next couple of years, at some point we'll go, we don't need that anymore. But no one's going to go get it. They're just going to leave it there. And so you'll be able to go to these old places. Eli likes to live in his own virtual world. And so we have our pirate here and Martina. Sally, she has a hard time getting around. So she has an entire exoskeleton that helps her get around from place to place. And then we have this gun here that actually it's a smart gun. And so if it has technology, it can be hacked. And since it can be hacked, well, it can fire in reverse. And that's actually a feature. So when you read the comic, you're like, it's a feature, not a bug.
Right, exactly. It should be noted, this was written by Fred Van Lente,
yes.
Art by Inio Buffy. We have a spectacular crew working on these books, and you can see we've already done. We did a Kickstarter for the first original graphic novel and 2 single issues, and those are we're building a plan right now that go into the comic shops early next year.
Yeah. And if you're wondering, like, really, beluga whales with lasers? They actually, if you don't know, the Russians currently use sea mammals for checking for sea mines and things like that. So they've already employed.
Well, and beyond that, because of AI, we're now to a place where legitimate scientists are now having conversations with whales. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right? They're very rudimentary in the beginning, but this is going to be very, very common. Yeah.
This character right here is based on a guy named John Hammond. So in the cybersecurity industry, John Hammond has his own video podcast where he teaches people how to do hacking, how to do defending. Very successful, over, I think, 1 million subscribers. But he was one of the backers of the Kickstarter program. So because of that, he got drawn into the comic books. So we were able to bring cybersecurity into comics and comics into cybersecurity. So I'm only going to show the first couple of pages here.
But I will say that this project has been wonderful because it also has, like, as we started this project like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And you can see in some of these pages here, the world is going to be about AI. You're going to be interacting with machines through AR. There's just no way around the fact that, we're going to stop looking at phones. We're just going to start looking at the world around us and just being able to visualize that. And it's starting to feel much less and less like it's going to be 30 years in the future, this stuff.
Yeah. So of course you don't know, but a lot of times what we're writing into the comic book now will happen like 5 years way before we thought it would. And I just sent Adam the article. So part of the story takes place on the moon, and I'm not going to show it. Okay.
We've probably given away enough.
Yeah. It takes place on the moon, but like within a couple months of us writing this, like they were sending things to the moon to start this colony that 30 years from now will be a colony. Like,
yeah. So it's legitimately it's really kind of difficult to get to a place where you're imagining a future that is that is both likely and not going to happen faster than we thought. Yeah.
One of the things that we have to be very concerned about as we write these stories is that we don't make the future bleak.
Right.
Because it's not a dystopian future. It's not. We're not making a dystopian future. We're making a version of the future. Just like in the 1950s, they thought, what would the world look like in the early 2000s? Like, it's not bleak. It's just what we think it will look like. So this isn't dystopian fiction. It's just this is what's coming based on what we're reading, what we're learning, what we're seeing as far as technologies. Yeah, this
is what the world will look like. Yeah, that's very wonderful. Thank you. And I will say, publicly, this has been some of the most fun I've had in working in comics for a very long time, just because it is so engaging intellectually and so engaging creatively. And we've been challenged to not only make, comics that are accurate and comics that will resonate as true, but also make good comics. We're gonna have to win awards, Jason. We gotta do that.
The last thing about the comics is that in the comics themselves, when our characters, the main characters, encounter something where they have to use their hacking abilities, you'll be able to go to a website where you can do those hacking activities. So if you don't know how to hack, there will be tutorials, there'll be hints to help you walk through like figuring out how to do the challenge. But like when they break into something, you'll be able to go to a URL website and do the thing just like the characters. Because like I said, we want to bring cybersecurity to comics and comics to cybersecurity. Like we want like if you just go to a comic book store, you pick this up off the shelf and you say, wait a second, I can do the hack. And you type it in and you go there and you'll see a console and you're like, now what? Right?
Yeah.
And so the now what I can't speak. It's the what if I do this? 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 Like some people will just close it automatically, and some people are like, wait a second, what if I do this? What happens? What if I do this? What happens? And all of a sudden, you're going to see people who are like never thought they could be a hacker go, I just hacked something. Oh, that's so cool.
So this process that you talked about is a teaching tool and a puzzle tool that hackers use to teach each other and to kind of challenge each other, called Capture the Flag, or CTF, right?
Yes.
And so we're going to have CTFs embedded inside of the books, and sometimes hidden inside the books in ways that people are going to have to really look hard for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another layer on top of all of this. Has really been fun to build. Awesome. All right. Well, we are before we are completely out of time. There's one other thing. I'm going to make a hard left turn, and I'm going to talk about something that you have convinced me I think should be in the tool bag of every comic shop in the world right now. In fact, anybody who deals in community, which is basically all of us. And watching how you and your team use Discord to not only create a place of community, much like those Michael Bendis boards, the Bendis Bendis boards, but like kind of updated, but it legitimately feels like the thing that social media was going to do for us before it became about the algorithm showing us the thing that will keep us engaged.
Yeah.
So can you tell us, give me a few minutes of a pitch, because you've given me this pitch before, of what you think the comic shop of the future looks like, and how can they begin building that now?
Okay. So if you left after the 30 minutes,
yeah.
This, for the comic retailer or the comic publisher, like this is the most important part of this. Like if you go back to having an influential comic book store, if you get there first, you could be the most influential comic book store, the most influential publisher. By doing this part next. What I'm about to show you feels like showing someone MySpace in 2002. Right? Like it's
100%.
It's like, okay, there's this thing coming called social media, and it's going to just rock everything. And like, okay. Right? Because I can tell that this isn't catching on in the comic book industry because it hasn't caught on in the comic book industry. I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. And when I look, there's no one else doing this. And I'm like, why isn't anyone else doing this? And it's not like, well, you're not doing Slack. You're not doing, you're doing Facebook. I get it. You're doing Facebook groups. You're like, but that's where the people are. Like, that's where they are because that's where you are. You are, right? So what I'm going to show is Discord. How much time do I have, Adam?
Oh, we've got as much time as you want to give,
Okay.
but our general rule of thumb of 2 hours is 30 minutes. So yeah, feel free.
All right. All right. So I'm trying to make sure I'm going to show everything, right? I'm not going to hold anything back.
Sounds very generous.
Okay. So I'm going to show it all, and I'm going to show Discord here. All right. So what you're looking at is the Black Hills Information Security Discord server, uncensored.
How many people are in this server?
This server right now has 48,567 people in it. And so launched in March 2020. So I would say we got a pandemic bump, right? Like,
sure.
Because everyone being at home means they had nowhere else to be. But we've also like curated this and supported this and put a lot of effort into this. So it's not just that. So if I go over here let's just go to announcements, right? So this is the very beginning. This is where we share where we're going to educate people, teach people, show people stuff. So if I was a retailer, what this would be is, here's my next online auction, or here's the next signing that we have coming up, or here's the next something that you want to let your entire community know. In this server, no one else can type. It's only outbound announcements. So think of this as your Facebook page where you're posting, here's my next thing, here's my next thing, here's my next thing, right? Like, so just because you don't have Facebook or you're not using Facebook doesn't mean you can't have like an approach. So this is where we're giving out the InfoSec survival guide. So this was created through the community. It is a print material. It is the same size as a comic book because I can't help myself. These are the topics of the articles. And then these are, we sell this for $1 a piece, or if you're an educator, we give it to you for free. All right. So you go to our online store, you can buy this. So if you're a retailer right now, you're like, wait a second, you can link to an online store? Yeah, absolutely. You can link to a Shopify store. Like if you're a publisher right now, absolutely. You can link to your distillery website, or you can link to your wherever, right? Like you can go and send people to buy something here if you wanted to, right? I am not talking about monetizing your community. I'm saying there is a business use case here and a community abundance use case here where they don't have to live separate of each other. They can live with each other, okay? This is the job hunt live stream that we mentioned at the very beginning where I teach people how to find jobs. So it only goes to the job hunters. Here's why that's important. So if I go down here to the job hunter chat, and if you're like rolling your eyes already saying there's too many channels, all right, it is just based on how people want to engage. So down here, this is where people are currently talking about job hunting. Like, so they're searching for jobs, they're trying to find a job, and they're talking to each other about, can you look at my resume? What about this? What about this? Right? Like they're helping each other in this community. But this person here, Jester, asked to get the job hunter role. So here's where the magic kind of kicks in for Discord itself. Your audience will engage the way that it wants to engage. So if they like Superman and they start commenting about Superman, then you could give them a role that's about Superman, and you could then tag everyone who talks about Superman, the Superman role, and then you could go down here into your messages and you could say Superman, right? Like you could then say, mention to everyone who has the Superman role. No one does here, so that doesn't work. But if I wanted to talk to everyone who has the job hunter role, then I would do this and then, hey, everyone, let's, right? Like you could talk to people who engage in a very specific way, right? So for those of you that are publishers, if you're watching this right now, you can say, well, people who read Rook Exodus get the Rook Exodus role. The people who read all Jeff Johns books get the Jeff Johns role. The people who work at Dark Horse and you have this new book coming out, you can say all the people who have that role, right?
And or if you're a publisher, people who love Silver Age.
Yes.
People who love, I don't know, I'm trying to come up with another brand new title, Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Right. That you can really start targeting people based on that. Is there there's no limit to how many roles someone has?
I think it's like 250. No, there's no limit to how many roles a person can have. Like Pika here, has just the contributor role. That means that Pika answers questions. So when I see Pika answering questions, then I give Pika the role for answering questions, which unlocks a channel just for the other people who answer questions. All right, so this is a locked role. So it is limited. So I can go over here to permissions, and only the people who are community leaders, contributors, and these specific people have access to this role, this channel. So if you scroll over here on the right, you can see these are all the people. I have the 49,000 people on the server. These are the only people who can see this channel and talk to each other in this channel. So back to that whole publisher thing, like you could have a role for just Jeff Johns that it unlocks, and now only people who are Jeff Johns fans can talk in the Jeff Johns channel, and that's where Jeff goes and talks to all of his fans.
Right.
Instead of it being a hero, right? Like now the fans are the hero, and John just goes, or Jeff just goes and talks to the heroes, right? Like it's flip it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that locked channel is where the publishers and the retailers can really, and you're like, but what about scarcity and abundance? It's not about scarcity and abundance. It's about engagement and what people like. When you find people who like something, connect those people together. So down here, you're like, well, what about server rules? Well, we have some very specific server rules. Don't be a jerk. Don't solicit for anything that's illegal in your country or another. No harassment, hate speech, spamming, or abusive behavior. Do share your knowledge with others. Do share links and tools that will benefit others. Do be a part of this community, and do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So what happens? We have a channel called Trolls and Admins. This is volunteer community driven. So I know there's publishers and there's retailers right now that are like, well, what about toxicity in the community? It happens, right? It happens in our community. It happens other places. There are definitely trolls. There are scammers. There's people. And so we have a channel dedicated. And this is today, right? Like this is yesterday, today. They take screenshots. Here's where the scammer came in and dropped some messages. And then they get banned. They just get banned from the server. Like this is self-cleaning server. These are all the people over here that have access to this. There's some people who can ban other people from the server. And so they are trusted, right? Remember, this is all about trust. And so down here, look at this. This is one of my favorite channels, Adam. So I created this a week, maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It says here, right? I created a brand new channel for just contributors and community leaders, right? So here's a $25 gift card. I'm essentially just giving, well, no, because it had a 48-hour use. So now that you're watching, it doesn't work anymore. But it says, thank you for being a contributing community leader. We'd like to give you a $48 gift card to our store. Please don't share with anyone outside this channel. And so it sends them to the link. Now, the community did very clearly say you never gave us the code. And I was like, crap. So we then put the code into the channel. But this went out to 200 people on our server, the volunteers of our server, the people who keep this place a good place to be. They do not work for Black Hills. They're just members of the community that help support the community that is here. And so we reward them from time to time. All right, check this out, Adam. All right, so we have our weekly webcast. So every week we do a webcast. We also do the news. Adam, hopefully you start doing the news soon. But if I click on Ched here, we can see that Ched has attended 14 webcasts, right? It's got a 4 and a 10. So they've attended 14. So for those of you that run auctions, you had someone that has been to 14 auctions. Are you going to treat them better than someone who came to your first auction? Maybe.
Of course.
Right? Like,
yeah.
I'm not saying abundance and scarcity. What I'm saying is that when someone keeps engaging and keeps engaging and keeps engaging, reward that engagement, right? Like, give them a virtual hug. Like, I see you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being a part of this community. So this person is an educator. They attend the live news and engage. They attend during our pre-webcast things. They attend our webcast. And the last time they were there was October 31st for Craig's webcast, right? So you could give roles based on when was the last time they attended an auction. Or at this auction, they like variants, right? Like, you know that they like graded variants. So you give them the graded variants role. So that way, you know, in the future, you can go down here and say graded variants, and it's going to tag everyone that likes graded variants and say, here's all the things that are coming out in this week's auction for the graded variants, right? Okay. So here's my other favorite thing. We got Hackett channel. You only get in here once you get the pizza icon. So once you get the pizza icon, that means you've attended at least 10 webcasts, and now you're a part of the Hackett group. So this channel unlocks for you. This is where, look, we sent this to this person. This is a free gift to this person. You can only get these shirts by attending 20 and 30 webcasts, right? So by attending 20 to 30, so think about your auctions, right? You're on auction number 50. You just send that 1 to 500 variant to somebody. You're like, hey, you just hit your 50th auction. I'm just going to give this to you for free. But the way that it works is that you have channels over here that they unlock. I'm just trying to figure out if I'm giving away anything for free right now. All right. So if you unlock these channels, once you hit 10, that channel opens up for you. It becomes unlocked for you. Once you hit 20, the next channel unlocks for you. Once you hit 30, it unlocks for you. Once you hit 40, it unlocks for you. Once you hit 50, it unlocks for you. So if you see it says, congrats for making it to Hackett 10 and unlocking private Hackett chat. So if I wasn't a member, or if I didn't have these special roles, I couldn't see any of this stuff. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to go over here to server, going to go to roles, going to click here. And I'm doing this fast because you don't need to know how all this stuff works. You just need to know that it exists.
You can go back and slow it down and watch it if you want when you're ready.
So if I click here, this is the way the server looks to people who just came in for the first time. They only see these channels. They don't see the contributor channel. They don't see the Friends of BHIS channel. They see this channel. They see I teach security. This is where people who are teachers in cybersecurity can let us know they're teachers, and then it unlocks a special channel so they can hang out with the other 700 people who also teach cybersecurity, so they can get a chance to know each other and share best practices for how to teach cybersecurity in universities and K through 12. We got Hackett check-in. Anyone can see this channel. We took a sticker. You can create your own custom stickers for your own. For publishers, you can make your own, from panels from your own books. So we have this new one. Like one of our team members was like, "It looks like someone's determinedly going somewhere," and I was like, "Heck yeah!" So people are now posting this and they're like, "I'm on my way!" Right? So you can create any of these different stickers that you want, right? Like this one's one of our characters, Blue Bear. So for publishers, you can create any of the like emojis and special stickers for your people to use. So down here, you can go to Open Chat where you can talk about anything and everything. This is where, like, if you're a retailer, you just let people talk about whatever. As they talk about whatever, you look at what they're talking about, and then you give them roles based on what they're talking about, because that's where that starts to show what their interests are. And then you start unlocking the other channels based on their conversation. And you're like, that sounds like a lot of work. So I was talking to a retailer recently, and he did the like, this sounds like a lot of work. And I was like, yes, but we don't use advertising. We don't spend any money on advertising. We don't spend money on ads. We don't spend money on digital ads. We don't spend money on, we make things, we bring people together. 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 Imagine taking all that time you spend on creating digital ads or managing digital ads or any of that stuff, and like you devoted it to community building time.
Or staff, right?
Or staff, yeah.
Yeah, the staff that you would normally pay to build those ads or do any
or run those ads, right? Like if you're spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars every month on digital ads, well, you're no longer spend money on digital ads. You're now just putting money towards that staff member that's doing community building.
Right.
So I love this stuff. Like if I go down here and I say, the news team. The news team. I love the news team. So every time they find an article that has something to do with cybersecurity, they just drop it in here. Adam, imagine you have a street team of news people who are gathering all the best articles about comic book news and dropping it into a channel for you. So that way you can go and talk about the comic book news where they're sourcing all the material for you instead of you having to spend all day sourcing it yourself. And then when it gets down here, it breaks into categories that people find interesting to themselves. And then when I see someone answer a question, then we give them a special role saying, thank you for being a contributor. Now they unlock some other channels. We send them gifts. We reward them. We say, thank you very much. But what's really cool, Adam, is the questions that people ask become the content for upcoming webcast. The questions that people ask become the articles for our next InfoSec survival guide. The questions people ask become the content that we make. The questions people ask just kind of go back into like, well, if you ask this question, it means you want to know the answer to this. What if we make something that can answer the question to hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people instead of just answering it for you? Like, we'll answer for you, but if you're asking this question, then there might be like thousands of other people that have the exact same question.
Also, classes, the classes that generate revenue for you. Those are come out of those questions. This was the light bulb moment for me where I realized that you had found a hack that it was the same thing as maybe you should pay attention to Facebook, right? That was, I remember that moment very clearly. And then Aaron pulled his shirt off and said someone dropped pepperonis and they got hair on them. And I will never forget that day. Yeah, as long as I live. This has been wonderful. I think we are over time. I want to make sure that I respect that, but I also want to make sure that if there's anything else that we haven't covered, anything that you wanted to make sure that we were talking about today, it feels inevitable that we're going to have to do this again here real soon. And I think we should spend some time just talking about what does cybersecurity look like for a small business? Sure. What is needed? And we'll make sure to put that in the first half hour so that people actually watch it next time. So, but in the meantime,
thank you for your time. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk today and share a philosophy of abundance and for treating the people who show up as the hero instead of the people who they show up for.
Amen. Where can people find Black Hills? Where can they find RECA?
BLACKHILLSinfosec.com. So if you ever need a cybersecurity company to test your security, you know where to find us. But RECA Comics, RECA backwards, right? So it's hacker backwards. And so RECAcomics.com takes you to BLACKHillsInfosec.com. We don't have our own website yet because that's a 2025 problem.
Yeah, the Piranha Discord is a 2025 problem, but it's coming. It's very, very much on our minds. This has been wonderful. Hi again. Thanks so much for watching Comic Industry Insiders. It, as always, is our pleasure to talk to the movers and shakers of comics and to bring you those conversations. We'd love it if you'd support us with a like and subscribe, and telling your friends is always good, but really what we'd want to do is hear from you. Any questions, any suggestions you have about our show, any suggested guests, frankly, anything at all, we'd love to hear from you. Our producer is nearly always Stephanie Girk, and our researcher is Anthony Militano, who makes me look much smarter than I am. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Namaste, y'all.